It's time for headaches and heartaches and, well, a very difficult situation to begin with, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of people will relate to. And it's when your partner shuts down and they just don't want to talk about problems. Aoife McGrath is a psychotherapist with Inner Therapy in Portlaoise. Morning, Aoife.
Morning, Will. How are you?
I'm in great form. And
Good.
unfortunately, Sarah in Portlaoise is not in great form because
No.
she says the other half says he doesn't like drama, but nothing
Mm-hmm.
ever gets resolved, and she's left
Yeah.
frustrated, and it feels like they're going around and around and around in circles. So when you're dealing with a situation like this, what advice do you offer?
Well, I would say it sounds like it's an ongoing issue. I would say maybe for Sarah to pick her time. And by that, I mean, if it's a habit or if it's a never a good time, if that's the response she's getting, to highlight that, to say, this is an ongoing issue. I try to talk about it. It's never the right time. So can we set aside a time as mature adults in a relationship to talk about the things that we find difficult to talk about? And couples will often say, we talk really well, we've got good communication, but it's really hard to talk about the stuff that's difficult or makes you feel vulnerable. Recently enough, I was talking to my physiotherapist, funnily enough, and he was saying that there's a new research out that shows that men do communicate better side by side in a similar way that adolescents would. If you have an adolescent, male or female, they will talk to you in the car. So the car is a
Hmm.
great place to get chatting. But seemingly men are the same. They don't tend to do as well face to face. Maybe it feels like it's a bit of an interrogation, and maybe in this situation it's become that. So side by side, either a walk, if you set aside time for a walk, even if you're pausing while you're watching telly, go for a drive somewhere, it might facilitate conversation. If, however, it is a habit that your partner is shutting down when, that it's not the right time, I don't want to talk about this, that is a choice that they're making. So that has to be highlighted to them as well, that they're making a choice not to engage on whatever the subject is. And there's so many subjects that couples struggle to communicate on. It could be financial, it could be health. You could be pushing them to go and get something checked, or it could be something to do with children, fertility. If they're shutting down either voluntarily or involuntarily, they're not aware that they're doing it. Sometimes that leads to a more animated response. As she said there, her partner doesn't like drama. Maybe she's becoming more emotionally engaged because she's trying to get a reaction from him, or she's trying to get any sort of engagement from him. So it's just to try and keep things at a steady, sedate pace, try to keep it as a conversation, not as a lecture, and see. But at the end of the day, if it's a choice that he's making, he has to sort of be aware of that, or be made aware of that you consistently do this when we try to talk.
I suppose sometimes language matters. In fact, always language matters. And how
Absolutely.
things are phrased can make a huge difference. And I've read before that if you describe how you feel, as opposed to saying, you do this to me,
Mm.
it can be less accusatory.
Well, that's it. And I think communication in its essence is the passing of information from one person to another. So if that information is getting lost in emotional stuff, if it's getting lost in the tone of criticism or blaming, the other person isn't receiving the information, or they're not receiving it as clearly as we want them to. So we do have to, yes, put it into if you're trying to get your partner to engage, it's the I. I feel this is something that needs to be discussed. I feel that when we try to discuss it, it gets shut down. You're giving very clear information to your partner that something is not working between you. And then, as I said, it's a choice then if they can then be invited to use their I feelings. I find it hard to talk about X, Y, and Z. How can we make that easier? How can we, because at the end of the day, some people have to, I guess it's language skills, and some of us don't have it, that we don't have them. They have to be kind of honed, but it's something you could work on together, definitely, to do that, to get those I statements out so that the drama or the emotional side of the information is toned down so that the message is clearer.
Here's a difficult one, and we might actually have to take a quick pause and have a think and come back to it. So, Lisa, and Lisa's not a real name, by the way, but she says she's being pressured by her partner to have children. She's 29, and it feels like it's all they talk about. Now, she doesn't want to put a timeline on it because her career at the moment is her priority. He's asking her to freeze her eggs to improve their chances of getting pregnant. Now, there is an age gap here. He's 36, she's 29. Have a think about what they should do. We'll tackle it after these.
Love the Midlands? Love Midlands Today with Will Faulkner.
Midlands 103.
Coming up after 11, it has taken 4 years, but finally, Laois councillors will get a meeting with Transport Infrastructure Ireland about problem roads. And is your job at risk of AI having a severe impact on it? Well, it seems the more educated you are, the more likely the answer is yes. Aoife McGrath is with us, though. She's a psychotherapist from Inner Therapy in Portlaoise. And we want to help Lisa, who has a partner 7 years older than her, who is putting her under pressure to start a family, even discussing freezing her eggs so their chances of becoming pregnant improve. What's your take on this?
Well, I can see it from both perspectives, Will. I guess the partner sounds like he's very locked in, he's very practical. He wants to make sure that when the time comes to have children, that it's a possibility. And it sounds like Lisa wants to be more, she sounds more laid back, she's kind of going with the flow, and she's having a less maybe clinical approach to it. It is obviously an interesting topic that they're both discussing, which is good because fertility is an issue that comes up for a lot of couples, and a lot of them aren't open to discussing it or haven't discussed it before they actually maybe get married or start a partnership. It's a growing problem across Europe. Funnily enough, the focus in this one is on the female in the partnership, but actually, it's been shown with science that sort of the younger a man can produce children, the better as well, that sperm doesn't age well either. So it's the focus is all on the eggs here. But I suppose there's a lot of things at play here, I guess. Again, it's communication in terms of if he's fully locked in on this, it sounds like he's not really open to other discussions, or he's pushing it, or it's becoming a fixation really. I would be interested in what's the relationship like apart from this. How long are they together? Do they both really want children? If they couldn't have children in the future, would that be a deal breaker? So there's just a lot at play here, and it sounds like then they're sort of at polar opposites in terms of where they are at the moment. And I think he has to meet her where she is. I think freezing of eggs is obviously, if it's a possibility, a financial possibility, it takes the pressure off maybe the relationship, takes the pressure off Lisa in terms of having that fail safe. But in general, it sounds like he's not really accepting where she is at the moment.
She uses the phrase that she's under pressure, and nobody enjoys being under pressure. But again, if he's 36, he's probably thinking, I want to be young enough and fit enough to spend time with my children, play with them in the garden, and so on. So can this happen more often when there is an age gap?
Well, I suppose, you can say that, and then you can look at the De Niros and who are the other ones in celebrity land who are fathers into their 80s and 90s. So I know that's frivolous, but yes, I suppose men probably do feel a biological clock in terms of that, wanting to be young dads. I suppose it would maybe be good to have a broader conversation around what would parenthood look like for them. Are they going to do traditional roles? If her career is important, is it possible for her to progress with her career, and he takes a step back and maybe have a less traditional way of raising children, that she could have both and he could have both? But is he willing to be compromised in the relationship so that it's not just about having the child or getting pregnant in the first place? It's about what will this look like for them as a couple to have children? And how will the roles be balanced? Might be a more productive conversation.
Can we tackle one more? Unfortunately, we've only 2 minutes, but Sam says somebody at work is making his life miserable. Their tone is awful, but yet in front of others, they come across as the nicest person in the world. So he feels they're gaslighting him. He doesn't want to make a formal complaint because he doesn't think it'll improve matters. He has tried to talk to this person, but they're passive aggressive, and he just can't take the abuse anymore. So he's contemplating moving jobs. Have you any advice?
That's a tough one. And I think it's something that we see in a lot in schools as well. It's this sort of covert bullying. So it's very hidden, subtle. It's a way of kind of undermining confidence and causing distress while on the surface level you're not doing anything wrong. So we'd often see this in schools, and maybe it's the same thing in this work environment, that the person who's sort of perpetrating the abuse is a very popular worker, or is a good worker, or is seen as sort of someone who never causes trouble, so that this sort of flies under the radar. But it is very distressing, and it is serious, and it's real. So I would say for the first bit, maybe, especially if there's gaslighting involved, to maybe take a record of things that happen. So take a note of the time, what it was, how you felt about it. Maybe talk to HR and just say, look, I in a sort of non-disclosure conversation, what would happen, or what does this fall under? Are there rules about this? I think the thing about moving or being forced out of work is you never leave with a sense of ownership. You leave with a sense that someone got the best of you, or you were forced to do it, which I don't think is ever a nice position to be in. So I think even if Sam got to the point of being able to address it, to call it out, to say I'm not working here because of this, or to take ownership of it in some way. If he then chooses to leave, it's with a sense of, I stood up for myself. I called you out on it. Maybe I wasn't supported, or maybe I was supported. He doesn't know unless he maybe takes it a bit of a step further. But I think with the gaslighting especially, there could be exclusion in work, where he walks into the canteen and he's not made to feel welcome, but it's very subtle. It could be a look, it could be sabotage on group projects where he's kind of thrown under the bus. So there is a definite thing, and it's a definite form of bullying. So I would never condone, or not condone, but I would never encourage someone to just leave a situation like that. I would say exhaust all your
exactly. And most companies will have a facility for informal complaints as well. It doesn't necessarily, as you say, have to go on the record. It can be dealt with more subtly and more creatively. Aoife, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
And if you want to look up Aoife McGrath, psychotherapist, you'll find her at Inner Therapy in Portlaoise.